My childhood was mostly a blur. I never had the best memory, and my childhood was also pretty uneventful, so there isn't too much for me to remember anyway, at least that's what I thought. And then, about a week ago, I remembered him. He was a spindly man with limbs so thin they looked brittle, like they would break if bent the wrong way. But he could twist them in all sorts of unnatural directions, and his face, it was gaunt, with his cheeks sunk deep into his skull, but he was always smiling, always. He had a red dot painted on each side of his sunken cheeks, a little like a clown. And then there were his eyes. No, I remember the day I saw him. I remember every detail, which is rare for me. I was 6, and my parents were taking me to my grandmother's house. She lived fairly close, but it had been several months since I'd last seen her. It was dusk. We were going for dinner. Like most grandmothers, mine was an excellent cook, so I was looking forward to it. We arrived, and after the usual comments about how tall I was getting, we had dinner. I don't remember what it was, just that it was delicious. I scarfed it down within a couple of minutes. The problem was that there wasn't much for a kid like me to do at Grandma's house once I'd eaten. There was plenty of books, but I couldn't read yet, so I asked her if she had any toys. She smiled at me and told me to check the closet in the guest bedroom, where she had stored all the toys from when my dad and his siblings were kids. I was curious to see what toys my dad had grown up with, so I did. Grandma apparently didn't have guests spend the night often because the guest room was almost totally empty. Like there wasn't even a bed. There was an old wooden chair sitting in the corner and a blank picture frame hanging on the chipped wall. The floor was dusty, and it seemed like Grandma didn't go into the room often. The closet door was set in the far corner of the room. I walked around it and opened the door. My little hand just big enough to turn the knob. Inside, a collection of ancient-looking coats hung obscuring the back of the closet, but I was more interested in the cardboard boxes sitting on the floor, each of which sported the word toys scrawled on their side in Sharpie. I pulled one out and opened it, and inside was a fascinating collection of old playthings, yo-yos, army men, even a couple of battered action figures. I was examining one of them when I heard movement from inside the closet. The sound of shuffling and then soft thump. "Who's there?" I asked. No response. "Who's there?" I demanded again. "Shh. Shh," a voice said from inside the closet. "Nobody's here." "That's not true. You're here," I said. For some reason, my stupid 6-year-old self wasn't scared, just curious. And a little fascinated. "So I am," the voice said. It sounded old, but freakishly happy at the same time. "Just ignore me." "Why don't you come out?" I asked. "Because I'll scare you. I'm scary looking. If I come out, you'll scream." "I won't scream. I promise, I won't scream. Will you come out now?" "Maybe." A moment later, a hand poked out from behind the coats. It was so bony, it could have been skeletal if it weren't for the thin layer of skin stretched tightly over it. A second hand followed it, equally withered, and the two hands parted the coats, revealing a face. That gaunt face with a wide smile and the painted dots on the cheeks. His eyes were closed, but I knew somehow that he could see me, and for some reason I wasn't afraid of him. I think I was just too young and stupid to realize how weird this whole thing was. But true to my word, I didn't scream. He crawled out of the closet on all fours, sat down in front of me. "Hiya," he said. "You're a cute little fellow, huh?" "I guess so," I said. "Why do you look so funny?" "I don't know. I've never seen what I look like before, but I think I'm scary looking because whenever someone sees me, they scream. Except you. You don't scream. I don't think you're scary, I said. Just weird. He mused to himself. What's your name? I asked. I don't know, he said. I don't have a name. I don't want one either. Oh. I didn't understand why he wouldn't want a name. I was about to ask him what I was supposed to call him if he didn't have a name. But I didn't. I don't know why. So, you want to play with me? He asked. I know some fun tricks. What tricks can you do? I asked. He stood up, then made his way across the room to the old chair. He grabbed the top with one hand and hoisted himself up off the ground like an acrobat. Then he began to twist. His limbs were bending all the wrong ways, but I couldn't stop watching him. He twirled upside down, twisting all his joints. After about 5 minutes, he finally lowered himself down and slowly crawled back over to me. How's that for a trick? He asked. That was amazing, I said. And it had been. I'd never seen anything move like that before. Glad to hear it, he said. Say, why don't we go play in my closet? We can have more fun in there. I looked over at the closet. It was dark and a little spooky. I wasn't sure I wanted to go back inside. I don't know about that, I said. I think maybe I should go now. No, don't go, he said. Stay with me. We can have fun forever and ever. Come on. I don't want to, I said. I want to go. Please. No. And then his smile, which had remained fixed on his face the whole time, drooped a bit. Get in the closet, he said. Though his voice was different now, it was quieter. It carried a sharp, bladed edge. It'll be fun, I swear. I'm not going in the closet. You're starting to scare me. Am I? Sorry. If you come with me, I promise I won't scare you anymore. His smile faltered even more. No, I'm not going in the closet. I'm leaving, I said. Then I stood up. I took a step towards the door. And what was left of his smile twisted, morphing into a heinous frown. His teeth were sharp, triangular points. How had I not noticed that before? Goosebumps were running down my arm and legs, and suddenly I knew that I needed to get out of there, but I didn't. I tried to move, but I found I was paralyzed. Then his eyes, which had remained closed the entire time, slid open. I screamed. They weren't eyes. They were voids, wide, empty gaps that were filled only with darkness, and even as I screamed, I couldn't look away from them. They called to me somehow, and I knew that if I didn't get out, I would be lost in them forever. He rushed at me then, his spindly arms surging forward, reaching out to grab me, his frowning mouth opening so wide I could have fit my head into it with room to spare, and that was what broke me out of my trance. I ran for the door as fast as my little legs could carry me. His clawed hands, just centimeters away from me, grasped me. I flung the door open, and I could feel his claws run along my back as I bolted through it. I slammed the door shut, catching his hands between the door and the frame. I heard his screech from inside the room, and he yanked it back, letting the door shut properly. I saw this and I kept running. I kept running down the hall, into the kitchen, and finally into the dining room, where my parents and grandmother were still talking. I ran into my mother's lap and I wrapped my arms around her, crying. They asked me what was wrong, and I told them about the thing that I'd met in the guest room. They didn't believe me. I remember my dad saying, "Quite an imagination, huh?" to my grandmother and laughing. After we went home that night, I somehow forgot about the whole incident completely. I forgot about the guest bedroom, the strange being I met there, those horrific eyes. All of it. I grew up, I finished school, I moved out. And I never thought about him. Until a week ago. I was walking home from a local coffee shop one morning and happened to pass a skinny man with a very gaunt, pale face and sunken cheeks and eyes. Strange, I thought. He looks familiar. He looks like... And then I remembered everything. That memory had haunted me constantly for the past few days. I spend every spare moment thinking about it. I wonder what would have happened to me if I'd gone into the closet with him, like he asked. I wonder what he would have done to me if he'd caught me. And I hoped it was just a dream, some crazy, random nightmare I had that somehow resurfaced when I saw that man on the street. That was the only remotely logical explanation I could come up with. And yesterday, curiosity got the better of me once again, and I went back to my grandmother's house. She died almost 5 years ago, but I was hoping to talk to whoever was living there currently. I had to see that room again. You see, I had to know. The current resident of the house was a woman in her late 20s. She looked very confused when I first knocked on the door, but I explained that my grandmother used to live in this house and that there was something I wanted to check on. She agreed to let me look and even offered me some snacks, which I declined. Well, she told me that she'd converted the guest bedroom into an art studio, where she painted. But she barely touched the closet at all, apart from getting rid of the boxes and the jackets. When I stepped inside, however, I was surprised to see a piece of wood lying on the floor of the otherwise empty closet. I knelt down to pick it up and I saw that it was inscribed with the phrase, "Nobody's here." A chorus of chills ran down my back at the familiar words. I turned the wood over, wondering if there was something written on the other side. There was. It said, "You weren't dreaming." Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and we've just started off 2021, hopefully pretty well here. It's been 10 years now since the channel's gotten started, and since then, man, we've kind of done a shit ton. If you'd like to check out more of what I've done, you can always follow me at twitch.tv/MrCreepyPasta to hear me recording live and where I talk kind of at length about myself and my life. And I want to give a very special thank you to all of you who support me on Patreon. Because, quite honestly, you guys help me keep the lights on in my house. And I can't thank you enough for that. A very special thank you to Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Ken Lando Higuchi, Chompski, Bobby Karman, Nico Kaeo, Tristain Pelton, Chase Burnett, Deanna Kraus, G Weevil 3, Chris Lovin, Freddy Krueger, Dr. Stein and Mr. Happy, Miranda Jeffries, Hugungshi, Justin Johnson, Raven Hart, Unknown Nobody, Michael Scharbrough, Kazan, ThisIsMyRealNameNoShit, Jason VB Wilson, InfernalOne, JimboTheHutt, Caspian, Jordan Nells, Hades' Nephew, Jordan Wayne Deckard, AcidSystem, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Cryptic Nightmares, Someone You Love, S-Man, Kiri the Sloth, Liam Newman, Sky Harbor, Caleb Dougal, Nina Smith, Raphael Rodriguez, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Paulson, and Corey Kenshin. Thank you guys so much. Like, seriously, thank you guys so much. And if you would like to be able to join them, you always can at patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. I love you guys, seriously. All of you who support on Patreon, who follow, who subscribe, those of you who listen, and those of you who lurk. Thank you for the amazing 10 years. And sweet dreams.